Right. So I'm Andrew Stone of Bitcoin Unlimited, which is one of the Bitcoin clients. It's based off of Bitcoin Core, which you guys probably use, or you may use like a phone wallet. Do people like run full Bitcoin nodes, or you mostly use phone wallets? You just kind of raise your hand, and if you use Bitcoin like a full node, can you raise your hand? So a couple, right? So about half of you, right? So when you use a full node, you're sort of helping the Bitcoin network, right? And Bitcoin Unlimited, it provides a different opinion than Bitcoin Core on a lot of the current issues that are, confronting the Bitcoin network. So let me pop up my slides now if I can figure out how to do that. And then we can go in to things. And I guess since there's relatively few of you, if people want to just shout out questions, I'm okay with that. If they raise their hand and, pop out a question in each slide. Let me try and do the screen sharing.
Okay, yeah, you nail the slides for a minute, and then if you guys have questions, put your hand up and I'll unmute. We can interrupt.
Yeah, do you guys see the, do you still see me, or do you see a slide?
We've got the slide. Oh, and I'm going to try and expand you. Yeah, so we've got the slide, and I'll expand you full screen.
All right, I can't see you guys because well, maybe you tell me if the slide suddenly gets really small. Is the slide still full screen for you?
It's kind of small, but I think that's working.
All right, so let me get started. So Bitcoin Unlimited is both a client and an organization. We follow, a set of bylaws which define clear rules as to how changes occur in the Bitcoin Unlimited client. Some of these rules are, they're basically made to limit the power of individual developers. If you guys read Reddit at all, like the, Bitcoin forums and things, I think you will, either you agree or disagree, but the truth is that, with specific individuals, but they do have tremendous power to influence what goes into the Bitcoin Core client, which, as the majority client significantly influences, the network itself. So really, Bitcoin Core with the majority of nodes, it's not really this decentralized ideal, right? It's actually a oligarchy of, a couple of core committers. And Bitcoin Unlimited runs via a voting system. You become a member, you can vote on proposals, and the only way that changes are made to the client is through, these different proposals. And then also, we wrote a set of papers that provide a theoretical foundation for sort of our core assertion that the size of a block could be market driven. So the key thing to know about Bitcoin Unlimited, if you've sort of heard it, is a lot of people think that means unlimited blocks. It doesn't really. It means more like unlimited choice. And more importantly, that the size of the block should be market driven. So our research has basically discovered that there are certain techniques and methods that miners and nodes can employ to essentially guide the network to larger or smaller blocks, presuming that there wasn't a hard limit. So that, if people are running the client, it enables market-driven decisions instead of decisions by some Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. And we're also focused on optimizing the end user experience. So, we don't want Bitcoin to become a settlement network. We want it to be used with a, low transaction fee between people worldwide. And to do so, we need scaling. So Bitcoin Unlimited basically grew out of this dissatisfaction with scaling. So why should we have competing clients? We actually don't want, to be the only client. So typically, in the world, progress occurs via a combination of competition and cooperation, and that's sort of what we do here. As I said earlier, Bitcoin Unlimited actually periodically rebases its source code base on top of Bitcoin Core. So any features that they implement, we eventually get, and then we add our own features on top. So also, if you have alternatives, it restrains ivory tower development. And what I mean by that is, you know, the development team going off and doing something that the user base doesn't want. And then finally, different clients can meet different needs. There might be, like the needs of a miner is very different than the needs of an exchange, which might be different from the needs of a home user who's running a Bitcoin node, you know, not to make money, but just as a hobby. So this is what the Unlimited client has on top of Bitcoin Core. So in the consensus area, Bitcoin Unlimited will accept blocks of any size, but it will essentially discourage blocks that are greater than size n. And the way it discourages them is it won't relay them until until that block is part of a chain, you know, basically part of the blockchain, right? I don't want to go into great detail until I know what, you know, your personal knowledge level in Bitcoin is. So if I'm, you know, going into too little detail, you can always just stop me and ask for more.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Okay. And then if you're a miner and you generate blocks, you can actually pick the size that you want to generate the blocks. So for example, the default client, Bitcoin client, will accept blocks up to, I think, 16 megabytes. And it will only generate blocks at 1 megabyte though. So by default, the client is compatible with the current Bitcoin network. Yet, if for some reason 51% of the miners chose to produce blocks that were greater than 1 megabyte, then all of the Bitcoin Unlimited clients would, you know, seamlessly use those blocks. You wouldn't have to upgrade your software. We've also done a lot of work in optimizing the network. We have something called Request Manager. We have this optimized block forwarding protocol, which basically means that we can, well, I'll talk about it a little bit later. We have something called expedited forwarding. We have some increased statistics, and then finally traffic shaping. Traffic shaping is basically if you have a home node and you have, you know, like a 3 megabit upstream, and you only want to allow one, you know, Bitcoin Unlimited to use 1 megabit of that, then that's traffic shaping. It's basically limiting the amount of traffic bandwidth that the Unlimited client can use. So Xthin Blocks is kind of the feature that has gotten a lot of people excited. What it essentially does is it doesn't send the transactions inside the block, because in theory they've already propagated throughout the network. And so basically we've had this this feature released for several months now, and I think since like March or even before March. And on average, we get a 24 times compression. So a 1 megabyte block becomes 42 kilobytes on, you know, average. I actually sometimes see 10 and 8 kilobyte blocks. It really depends on how well your client, whether your client has all of the transactions in the network or whether it's still playing catch up. And it also depends on whether the miner throws in weird transactions that maybe it's holding on its own and not propagating to the network, or whether it's just, you know, if the miner just includes the 1,000 most expensive, you know, highest fee paying transactions that it has, then chances are the whole rest of the network is going to have all those. So the block sizes are very small. So that's what Xthin block compression is. An expedited block propagation is where rather than, so right now the Bitcoin protocol, it has this very formal handshaking system where a node says, I have, this block, do you want it? And then the other node replies back, yes, I do want that block. So there's this sort of double hop type thing. What expedited block propagation does is you can sign up for, for a specific peer node to just send you the block the moment it receives it. And so that allows you, that saves basically a lot of time. It allows the blocks to propagate through the network very rapidly. And we have, Bitcoin Unlimited has a set of 8 nodes. 2 of them are in China, and then we have 1 in Hong Kong, Japan, a couple in Europe, and a couple in the US. And so basically this is a graph which I talked about this in much more detail in this on-chain scaling conference. So I just put the final graph here. And so this is basically a graph of the propagation from China to London. But it's essentially representative of from China to anywhere in the world. I chose London because it's almost on the opposite side of the world. So it basically takes, so this first, so most of the blocks come in this first peak, and that's about 100 plus milliseconds propagation worldwide, which is about as fast as you can get. I mean, realistically, I think light takes about 60 milliseconds to get around the world, so this is pretty close. And then for some reason there's this other spike that might be like that occurs with one mistransmission or something like that. But anyway, within a half a second, we are pretty reliably moving the blocks all over the world. And so, ultimately a 1 megabyte block, we can knock that down to less than 64K, right? So what we're trying to say is this is really not a large amount of data for today's networks. On the other side, limiting the block size, forcing it to be limited has a lot of dangers, I believe, for the future of Bitcoin. First of all, on the supply side, people talk about supply and demand for everything, right? And in this case, I'm talking about the supply of transaction space in the block, right? How many transactions? So people have demand, they want to give a transaction to the network, and the network has a supply, which is about, 1,500 to 2,000 transactions every 10 minutes, because you can cram about 1,000, between 1,000 and 3,000 approximately transactions in a block. So as you can see, this is a little graph I pulled from the internet, and right when we really hit the end of this graph, you guys probably can't see the dates, neither can I, but basically right when we truly hit the limit where all the blocks were full, the supply can never get larger, right, in today's network. So the fees shot through the roof, right? Now they've come down. Why have they come down? It's anyone's guess. I see that, though, as people no longer using Bitcoin in the way they want. They probably change their behavior or move to other cryptocurrencies. So this is one of the dangers of having a limited block size. People leaving, not wanting to pay 25 cents just to write 1,000 bytes into a database. Secondly, there's no good solution for a transaction that will never be committed. So if someone, if an end user accidentally issues a transaction with a fee that's incredibly small, then their wallet will show that that money is spent, yet it will never arrive at the destination. It ends up in some weird limbo. And, if you're like a software engineer, like I know how to recover that money, although it would be a pain in the butt, but a lot of end users, it just provides a very negative, use, right? Finally, people actually in Bitcoin Unlimited, we're not against the proposals for off-chain scaling. Actually, we just want those proposals to be to compete in a fair, level playing field against the on-chain scaling, methods. And actually, the Lightning Network, which is the proposed off-chain scaling mechanism, it has issues with limited block sizes, and the main issue is that it relies on transactions being committed reliably and with predictable fees. The reason why is because when you create like a payment channel, you and someone else basically sign a transaction, and then you don't submit it to the blockchain. And you intend to do so, like say, a month later, right? And then if you pay each other money, you sign another transaction that splits the money in a slightly different way. So that's basically how the Lightning Network works. And the problem is that it all works great unless when you go to finally commit that transaction, that final transaction a month later, say the fees, say the fees you need to pay to get into the blockchain are much higher, so that transaction will never commit. Well, then the whole Lightning Network, the whole channel breaks down, right? And so, and then also if the transaction is not included in the block before the end, then before it like expires, then the original payer gets the money back. So then the Lightning Network fails. So actually, the Lightning Network could actually benefit from a larger block size and a more consistent transaction fee. Finally, like I said, limited block size drives new users away. And finally, I thought I'd leave you guys with a thought: does block size even matter? Well, with Xthin Blocks, it's actually less than one IP packet, right? Much less than 64 kilobytes. So sending a single packet through the network is like nothing, right? If the transactions are already propagated. And as you saw in that other graph, expedited blocks propagate in less than 1 second if the transactions are already propagated. So block size doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is transactions and the number of transactions in the network. How do we know this? Well, one of the key things to know is how do people do spam attacks on the network? They issue a lot of transactions, right? And they issue them with a high enough fee to get into people's memory pool, basically to be held by the nodes in RAM, right? But a low enough fee so that the transactions never get onto disk. So, I mean, as you know, you have 1,000 times more capacity on your disk than in RAM, right? So those transactions sitting in RAM actually waste a lot more resources than if we could just submit them to the disk, right? If we could just get them into the blockchain and have them be written to the disk, then they would actually, consume significantly fewer resources in the network, and we would, by doing so, we would actually penalize the spammer because he has to pay a transaction fee once the transaction gets put into a block. But if it's just sitting in the mempool, then the fee is never paid. And finally, you can issue as many transactions as you want, regardless of the block size. So the limits of a block size don't affect the transactions, except that they drive users away. So ultimately, I mean, it's like, a product that says, well, we need to fail our way to success, right? We need to drive users away so that we can succeed. This is not a good policy for success, in my opinion. And then I just want to leave you with the idea that the average web page today is greater than 2 megabytes. So it seems unbelievable that Bitcoin can't scale beyond 1 MB per every 10 minutes. How many websites can you load on your machine in 10 minutes, right? Probably like 100 if you were really clicking away. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I think we can open it for questions.
So Andrew, I've got a couple questions. I think a few of our guys are going to have some questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my first question, Xthin, how many of the other clients are looking at adopting Xthin? Because man, that seems absolutely revolutionary.
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and Xthin is already in the XT client.
Hey, wait, Andrew, you got to turn your camera back on so we can see you talking.
So Xthin has already been merged into the XT client and released, and actually it was merged into Classic like last week. I was working with Tom Zander on that. And in terms of core, there was a little bit of a, I don't know, like finger pointing there, because what they chose to do is they chose to implement something that was basically almost exactly the same, but with a completely different, physical implementation. And I think that's because they have these issues, right? I mean, they have issues, So, so Xthin is going to be coming to every client that you can use, or its equivalent, which is called Compact Blocks. Yes.
First off, that presentation was amazing. I didn't realize the depth. I didn't do enough research initially. What would you say is probably the greatest obstacle? Where do you need the most help moving forward?
Well, if there are any people there with really cheap electricity who are miners, then we would love to have some miners, right? Yeah. But
Go with you.
Yeah. So basically, if you believe in scaling Bitcoin, then run Bitcoin Unlimited, right? That's what I would say. And even more than Classic, the difference is that a miner will look at the nodes, like even a Classic node has this whole protocol that has to go through to scale up to 2 MB, right? But if you're not a miner, then run Bitcoin Unlimited, because that says to the miners, whatever size you give me, I'm happy with it, right? I'll do it. And believe me, like the Chinese miners aren't going to mine, 100 MB blocks tomorrow, right? They don't even have the transactions to do so, right? But they can't they couldn't move, you have more bandwidth than the Chinese miners do, right? So you don't have to worry about too large blocks, right? So I would say, run one of our clients. And if you are a software engineer and you're interested in getting more involved, then, you can contact me via email and we can talk about things.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to be in touch and see if we can't help you out. So two more questions for me. One would be, if we had some pool, is there a particular mining farm that you would love to switch over? Would that be enough help? And the second one is, have you made any predictions as far as when we're going to get to that next point where we can do more transactions, whether it's through the mass adoption of Xthin or payment channels or bigger blocks or what have you? I mean, obviously, from your presentation, bigger blocks does not concern me as much. You've got something like Xthin, but what say you on those two questions?
Xthin is like an enabler for bigger blocks, right? But ultimately, the network is being artificially limited, and we need to break that impasse, right? And I don't talk to the Chinese miners, right? They're the ones who can break this impasse. But I am guessing and hoping that something might happen, because, I think from my reading of the situation, the Chinese miners signed an agreement with certain individuals in Bitcoin Core and Blockstream, and that agreement said that they would go to 2 MB blocks by the end of July. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. And so if I were the miners, I would be suing them, because, you know, these miners have been running, they have upheld their side of the contract. So I would imagine that don't expect anything to happen until this contract officially runs out. That would be at the end of July. And then hopefully in the August timeframe, something might happen. Right?
Question: if I'm using some of the code libraries, like I think PHP Easy, or I know there's a few others that you can RPC into the core client. Bitcoin Unlimited, I assume, works the same way and has all the same calls. Is that so? Is that accurate? Could I replace Classic or Core with Bitcoin Unlimited on my own node if like I'm running a commerce platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bitcoin Unlimited, as I said, is it's rebased off of Core. So we're about to release a version of Bitcoin Unlimited that's based off of 0.12.1, right? So all of the RPC calls work exactly the same. There's one or two additions, like you can set the traffic shaping, and you can set, you know, the maximum mined block and stuff like that. But all the RPC calls will be used to are the same. I use like I don't use that PHP library, so but I do use the Python Bitcoin RPC library. So I personally use that one in my own testing, right? We've never had a problem. We're currently working with, you know, one of the pool software, which, you know, hits the RPC interface a lot. I think Roger here is, you know, setting up a Bitcoin.com pool. He's been posting that on Reddit. I'm helping him a little bit. And actually, right now it's using the Bitcoin Unlimited client in this new pool that's coming. So, and you know, we just dropped Bitcoin Unlimited in, and the pool software, which uses the RPC interface, that's why I'm mentioning it. It just worked. It just worked with it. No problem.
Okay, guys, any other questions? Okay, Andrew, hey, let me say first off, man, I really appreciate you coming in for the talk. And you're very valuable in the space. And we had some of the guys on the forums also. Just want to give you accolades and thanks for all you're doing in the space, in the Bitcoin space. I will be in touch, and any help you need from us, we'd love to help out in any way, shape, or form. Some of us are code writers, some of us are not, but you know, whatever you need, we'll try and help out as much as possible.
All right. All right. Well, if I come to Idaho, I expect to get a plane ride then.
Okay.
Aren't you a pilot? You said
yeah. I'll figure it out. We'll swap addresses here later via email. I'll take care of you.
I'm far away from Idaho.
Well, I'm flying jets too, so maybe I'll get there.
Oh, you fly jets.
Yeah, on occasion.
Thank you.
Almost every day. Hey, Andrew, appreciate it very much. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Round of applause, guys. Thank you.